Welcome back to Life, Leadership, and Love. I'm Keith.
And I'm Lynn. We're really glad that you're joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. We really appreciate you spending the time with us. Over the last few episodes, we've talked about how place shapes who we've become and how leadership often shows up without titles.
Today, we're talking about something that sits at the heart of both of those ideas,
That's
and
right.
that is partnership.
That's right, partnership. This episode is about partnership, marriage, and teamwork, not as ideals, but as lived experiences.
We want to talk honestly about what it means to walk alongside another person over time, especially when life includes public service, leadership, family, and change.
And I think we've experienced all of those things. This isn't about having all the answers. So please, we're not trying to preach or let you know that we've got the answers to every question that you might have about those topics. But it's about sharing what we've learned in our personal experiences and through life and what we're still learning. You never stop learning and experiencing. But specifically about partnership as a form of shared leadership.
Yep.
So before we talk about our own experiences, we wanted to just kind of slow it down a little bit and ask some simple questions like, what do we actually mean when we talk about partnership? What are we talking about?
Well, because partnership isn't just about being together, it's about how you listen,
Hmm.
how you make decisions, how you respond,
Hmm.
and how you show up for one another over time.
Yeah, that's so true. I was thinking a little bit about that when you were just kind of sharing just now about how you listen. Partnership is about how you listen. When you kind of step back and you're, let's just say, in a relationship, and your spouse is sharing something with you, talking about their day or about an experience that they had at work, are you really fully engaged in that experience with your spouse or your significant other or your best friend or whoever it is that might be sharing that experience with you? And how do we sort of tune into that, what's being shared, and not tune out, right? Because there's so many things that can distract us as
Most
we're
definitely.
trying to listen. And so I think it's really important that when we are listening to our that other person who's sharing that with us, that we let them know that we are actually listening and engaged.
Yeah.
I think that's so important.
And partnership isn't just it doesn't just stay at home,
Mm.
right? It's not just between spouses. It carries into leadership, it carries into work, it continues into service, it continues wherever. As long as we're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with people,
Mm-hmm.
it's partnership.
Yeah, that's very true. It even sort of gets involved in decision making, right? And how we go about making certain calls about various different things that might come up in the workplace or even at home or in other social environments.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that the term partnership, when we talk about decision making, is really about collaboration. It's about working together. It's about sharing your concerns or your thoughts or your recommendations. And again, it goes back to listening as well, right? As
Yep.
part of that partnership in the decision making process. And the other aspect, and you touched on this a little bit, was that how you show up for one another over time, right? That's
Yep.
the other thing that's really important in a partnership. I feel like when we think about like the really good friends in our lives, right? The really good friends, they're the ones who are always there for you, right? At your lowest, darkest moment, they are there for you. And I think that is a really important aspect of partnership.
Yep. And they require shared values, trust, and a willingness to let each person lead
Mm-hmm.
when they're the strongest. One other thing you mentioned that like true friendship, they're there like at your darkest times.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, like you can't only be reaching out to a friend during your darkest times, right?
Right, right. But it is them showing up at the right time
Yeah.
and the right place.
Yeah.
and you also showing up for them, right? It is reciprocal
Yeah.
in that sense, right?
So
Where
true.
if someone you know is having a tough time, or let's just say a friend that you haven't talked to for a while, right? That maybe you've lost touch with them, and there, who knows why, right? It could be just people got busy and things are going on in each other's lives, and you just haven't had a chance to connect. But you just never know what's happening in their lives. And so a true partnership in that sense, like a friendship partnership, which is a partnership, right? Friendship is a partnership, needs to be nurtured, and it needs to be something that we continue to work on and support and build on as it relates to strengthening those relationships
Yeah.
and those partnerships.
Most definitely.
So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about partnership in marriage, because I think that's something that we've got a little bit of experience in, being married now for 23 years and having been together now for about
God,
20,
23 years.
25
It's
years.
amazing.
Yeah, I know we only look like we're 18, but it is true. We've been married now for 23 years, and
Happily married for
happily
23
happily
years.
married for 23 years. And it is something I'm proud of that. I mean, I think that there's many people out there that have longer marriages and experiences together. Some people are not married, but they've been together for 30, 35 years, which is wonderful. That's a beautiful thing. If you can find somebody that you can be that partner to and you can grow together. Marriage isn't a requirement. It is a commitment, but I think equally as much a commitment is just being committed to somebody, not only just through that sacred vow of marriage. But we've had that opportunity now to be together for that long. And, I want to talk a little bit about how partnership in that realm and that experience through marriage, you know, how do we deal with things like disagreement as an example? Because we don't disagree.
We have.
Oh, we just
Believe
disagreed.
me.
Oh my gosh, we just disagreed right here on the podcast. But um, yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. How do we manage disagreement in a marriage like this?
Well, I think we have an unspoken rule to resolve our differences by bedtime.
Mm.
Don't you think?
I would agree. I would say that I could probably count the major disagreements we've had on one hand over the 25 years that we've been together. And I can't think of one time where we didn't resolve whatever we were dealing with before we went to bed, because I think that is really important. You don't want to let that thing kind of fester, and it's not healthy, right? For just for the individual, right? Individuals that are involved in that.
Yeah. We were talking about earlier before the podcast, we were talking about birth order.
Yes.
And I wanted to talk about birth order and
Yeah.
see like how maybe that's impacted us or helped us. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about that, because when we think about dealing with issues in a partnership, like in a marriage, that maybe there is some level of pressure involved, right? Maybe it's a really heavy issue or heavy topic that needs to be sorted out and dealt with. I was just thinking about how we work through those types of experiences, and how do we support each other, right, in those experiences? Because I may be having a really bad day. I may be having a difficult time at work, or maybe, dealing with some major issue outside of work, whatever it might be. And knowing that I can come home and talk to you about it and seek your advice and guidance, I think is really important.
Yep. And I don't know how many of you follow us on social media, but I posted a couple nights ago how we have developed a habit of walking together
Yes.
on a nightly basis.
It is the truth.
We walk holding hands, and during that half an hour walking throughout our neighborhood, we confide in each other about work, any challenges that we're grappling with. Maybe we had an excellent day and we just want to share the good news of our day. But that 30 minutes, besides walking and increasing my number of steps on a daily basis, I look forward to our discussion
Yes.
because I feel like we have each other's attention for half an hour, and we can confide in each other. Whatever Keith has dealt with, I probably have dealt with in my own workplace, and vice versa.
Right.
And so when we have issues, I just feel like we can empathize, we can clear our minds. We feel better at the conclusion of the 30-minute walk.
I would agree. I mean, I feel like at least for me, when I do talk about an issue while we're walking, I feel like I can clear my mind and get some really good advice and really just prepare myself for whatever might be coming the next day as it relates to that particular issue. And so I think it's very healthy for me. It's almost like a walking therapy session in a sense. And I really appreciate that. And I think it's important, for if you can find somebody that you can have those moments with where you feel that you can share things without sort of any kind of, I don't want to say a filter, but I guess that's the best thing that I can kind of articulate right now, is that if you can sort of in an unfiltered manner share whatever you're dealing with and be open to listening to the advice that's going to come from your partner that you're with.
Yeah. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a spouse or girlfriend, boyfriend.
Right.
It could be a coworker. It could be a classmate, a friend, even a neighbor.
That's so true. Yeah, that's so true. And, I was just thinking too that as we're walking and we're talking, and how that probably has an impact on my health, not only, because we're getting exercise and we're burning calories and getting steps in and getting that movement going, right, and blood circulating and whatnot, but I think also just from a mental health standpoint, I think it's really important because it allows me at least to, again, sort of work through issues in a different setting and just get it off my chest.
Yeah. And like I said, for those of you who follow or maybe don't follow our social media pages, I shared that we not just walk, but we hold hands when we're walking, because I think that connection, being able to just hold someone, touch someone, I think is further benefit. And especially for me, having a long history of tripping, even on a flat surface, I trip amazingly. Being able to hold Keith, his hand, when we're walking has prevented me from falling.
Yeah, I'm a big guy, so I'm like basically a walking airbag. So if she were to fall, at least she could just fall on me. But I think in addition to that, not only just being able to provide stability for you, I think there's also some health benefits in sort of that experience too. Because I was thinking about when our son was born, and our son was born prematurely. And so for about 30 days, he was at Kapiolani Medical Center in the NICU there, and the nurses took great care of him for those 30 days. But what I recall the most was when the nurses were recommending what's called kangaroo care, and that's where you hold the child essentially on your bare chest, right? So it's skin to skin contact, and it has like tremendous health benefits for the baby. And I can see how even just by holding hands and having those experiences together as we're walking can really just, again, have additional health benefits for us as two adults.
Yep. And I read that Studies show that holding hands reduces blood pressure,
No wonder I feel so relaxed.
reduces cortisol levels.
Stress hormones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's just an amazing thing. So again, if you can find that right partner, and you can have that experience, we highly recommend that you do it. And you'll see some, I think, immediate benefits from just at least just getting out and walking. And, of course, if it's your neighbor, you don't want to be holding hands with your neighbor unless you're in some sort of relationship with your neighbor. But it is just getting out there and walking and talking and having that experience together can have tremendous
oh
benefits.
yeah, I totally agree.
So we were just you had mentioned something. I want to get back to it really quickly, and that was birth order and partnership and maybe dealing with disagreements. And for those of you that don't know, Lynn is an only child. I have two other siblings, so I'm one of three. I am the oldest in my family, and so growing up, I had to share a lot of things with my siblings, including clothing and food and vying for attention of my parents and grandparents over time. And so, that I think played a big role in preparing me for life and disagreements and dealing with not being able to get my way on certain things. And I was just kind of curious, being an only child, how do you think that's affected your ability to deal with disagreements?
Well, I studied birth order as an only child. I wrote an essay when I was, I don't know, middle school, elementary school. I don't recall, but I studied birth order to some extent. The oldest child and only children, they're very similar.
Mm-hmm.
They're very assertive. They make good leaders. They're, I think, a lot more aggressive, outgoing, driven, goal oriented. The only difference between an oldest and only is that everything is a lot more, I guess, pronounced, or it's more extreme when it comes to only children. So if you're driven, the only child as compared to the eldest is very driven, very assertive, and I think I kind of matched that. I'm generally assertive and goal oriented and whatnot. But as an only child, being that I received all the attention growing up, I tended to get my way. And so later being married and being in a partnership was an adjustment, frankly.
I can imagine that, because now you're having to share decisions and major life decisions with another person.
Yeah.
And you're not in full control necessarily, right?
Yeah.
Of what direction you're going to be heading in as it relates to whatever issue you're dealing with. But I was just thinking about, even before we got married, thinking about how that birth order may have impacted things like your work environment.
Birth order affecting.
Meaning that when you were dealing with disagreements and issues in your work environment, do you think that it was a challenge for you to sort of get through that birth order issue, like of always getting your own way or always being sort of the focus of attention? I'm just trying to understand how that may have affected you, because I was thinking about my own personal experiences being one of three children in a family and having to essentially share everything. it really, I think, opened up my mind and my eyes to a perspective that allowed me to then carry that forward into my career and other things that I've been involved in, whether it be volunteering or being involved in different clubs or different organizations, and just trying to think of how that has allowed me to sort of step back and really appreciate other perspectives and understand that I don't necessarily have the final say in everything.
I think if I had, being raised as an only child for like 18 years,
Mm-hmm.
there was a period where I left home to pursue my college education and my graduate school education before working.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think if it wasn't for that college experience, I probably would have had much more difficulty in the work environment as an only child. But when you go to college, when you have to live in a dorm and have a roommate or multiple roommates, you learn to compromise. And I think that was a good transition for me, being that when I went to college and lived in a dorm, I had to be in a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And that was good training for me before entering the workforce.
Yep. I can totally see that, because it's almost like you're living with a sibling,
Yes.
right? At that point, you're
Yes.
sharing a bathroom, or you're sharing closet
Yeah.
space, or you're sharing common area space in that dorm. And I was just thinking about how when our son went off to college, and you were probably in a 2-person dorm.
Mm-hmm.
And now what's happening in different colleges is that they're forcing students into triple bunks in a room that was designed really for 2 at the most. And I can't even imagine what kind of an experience that must have been for our son, who, by the way, is an only child, who, has been sort of the center of attention for us and for our family, and to now be sort of thrown into that experience. I think that really humbled him and made him appreciate the fact that he has to work with other people and broaden his perspective and be a little more compassionate and patient and understanding. And I think that really changed him, much kind of like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you feel like that's carried forward into your, I guess, eventual career choices and career experiences.
Yeah. I think that college experience really taught me the importance of communicating, listening, compromising,
Mm-hmm.
negotiating before working with people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was excellent training.
Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about how teamwork and different strengths and shared values impact the partnership. And I was thinking a little bit about how one of the things that we've learned over time is that strong partnerships don't require identical strengths. You and we don't have identical strengths. I think you're very organized. I think you're very assertive. I think you're extremely intelligent and beautiful, and just an amazing and talented person who can basically do anything that she puts her mind to. And for me, I think I'm a little less organized, so I don't feel like I have that sort of strength. Do you think I have that strength?
Oh yeah, you're totally organized. And you're so responsive when it comes to texts, emails. I mean, you're just on top of everything. I'm just so impressed.
Maybe we do have identical strengths. The only reason I say that is because I feel the same way, like with you. I mean, anytime you get a text message or you get an email or somebody calls you or somebody's reaching out to you, like you're always very responsive. And when I say responsive, I mean like within seconds or minutes of having received an email or text message or a phone call, which I think is really, really important, right? Because in today's day and age, now that we have cell phones and text messages, and we're not having to rely on faxes or handwritten mailed letters to be able to provide responses. I think people expect to have like those immediate responses to their emails and text messages.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when it comes to work, like I really strive to be as responsive as possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way of showing respect to the sender of the email. And yeah, over time, like you learn so much about even how to respond, right?
Mm-hmm.
The tone, everything. I mean,
how to respond, how to write properly, how to articulate your response in a way that's not offensive or has tact, so that you don't end up saying something in a way that is misinterpreted, because that's so easy to do on text and email. If you're talking to somebody over the phone, you can hear the tone, the cadence, you can hear the sarcasm, their sarcasm, right? Or even just speaking one-on-one.
Yeah.
But in a text message and an email, you can't get that. So be careful when you're writing emails and text messages. One thing that I do, and this is just a really quick tip, especially if I'm dealing with a major issue or a hot topic or something that is sort of a challenge, is I may write the email, but I'm not going to send it. I don't send it until I have an opportunity to step back and sort of read it and review it and really make sure that the message that I'm trying to send is the right message.
Yeah.
Do you do that?
I have a tendency to respond too quickly. So that is one thing that when I underwent a certification to be a workplace conflict mediator, that is one thing that my assessment, I took an assessment, and one thing the report showed was I'm quick to respond, so quick that I oftentimes may say the wrong thing, or the tone may be harsher than I would like, that if I had waited an hour or two or even a day later, the tone would be much different. And once it's sent, the recipient reads it, I mean, it can really impact the relationship between two coworkers. So
that's interesting. And so what else did you learn about in your conflict mediation training?
I learned about hot buttons and the importance of having key people who you work with also do an assessment, and we learn, and whoever takes the assessment quickly receives a report, and it identifies what triggers really affect us and suggestions as to how to better respond when you experience those triggers.
Oh, that must have been a very valuable training experience.
That has been, yeah. And I hope to be able to reduce workplace conflict through mediation sessions that are confidential, that make two parties who may be opposing each other feel like they're in a win-win, that the outcome is a win-win for them, as opposed to winner versus loser. So yeah, I've learned a lot, and I hope to help my department.
I feel like, and I didn't attend that training, but just being heard is probably a big piece of working through those kinds of disagreements.
Yes, listening and techniques on how to show that you're listening. So, like, for example, being busy at the office, I'm oftentimes at my keyboard typing away. And then when someone comes in, I'm like responding to an email that doesn't affect the person who comes into my office. And I'm typing the keyboard, typing, away, and then trying to listen. But that is not showing that I'm actively listening and giving my full attention to that person. So techniques like that we've learned, and I feel I'm a better coworker after taking that training.
Yeah, being present, I
Being
think,
present.
and making sure that you're actually engaged and making good eye contact and really listening to what that person is sharing,
Yeah.
it probably can help alleviate a lot of the pressure.
Yeah.
Communication is such an important thing in life, right?
And
being
everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you can't communicate properly, and listening is part of, in my mind at least, it's part of communication. If you're listening, you can then absorb what's being shared, and then you can respond in a meaningful and appropriate and empathetic way. I think you can cut through a lot of big issues and challenges that people are maybe dealing with, right?
Yeah. Even chats via Microsoft Teams, texts. Yeah, oftentimes when I look at my texts, the tone is not how I intended it to be, but it comes across a lot colder than I want it to sound. So I have to be mindful, much more mindful of that.
Well, I think, again, we can all be more mindful in the way that we communicate, especially when we're using text or email. And that's why I think that tip that we just shared about maybe if you're going to respond to something that is a big concern or major issue, or maybe is a trigger or a hot button, you can draft the email, but just don't send it.
Yeah.
Step back, take a 30-minute break, an hour break, come back to it, read it again, and maybe make some adjustments, because you'd be surprised how much you may change your mind in just that short period of time, and may prevent something from really going off that shouldn't have gone off. And why drag things out when you can just resolve them in an amicable and professional way, and be the bigger person in this whole experience?
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, so we're getting sort of to the end of the podcast here. We're probably somewhere near the 30-minute mark. I don't know exactly. I don't have all my timer on, but what I wanted to talk a little bit about before we close it out is what partnership has taught us. And looking back, partnership has probably taught us more than any formal leadership role ever could.
Most definitely. Taught us patience, it taught us humility, communication, and how to grow together instead of apart.
Yeah. And, as I think about all the leadership opportunities that I've had throughout my entire life, I think the most growth that I've received just from a personal perspective has been in the last 25 years that I've been together with you as an individual, because that to me has just been the most incredible, this has been the most incredible partnership. It continues to be the most incredible partnership that I could ever ask for. So I think, being able to be together and working through challenges together and having these experiences together just really has brought us closer.
Yeah. And as empty nesters, I think it's brought us closer.
Yeah. That's so true. So thank you again for being with us.
Yes, thank you so much. I learned a lot. I enjoyed this discussion, and I hope you did too.
Yeah, I hope you did too. And, we just wanted to be together with you and share about partnership and some of those aspects that we shared throughout this podcast.
Yes, so whether that partnership shows up in marriage, family, friendship, or work, it's often where leadership is practiced most honestly.
It is. And we just want to thank you for spending the time with us and for reflecting alongside us. We're very honored to have you.
Mahalo for listening.
Take good care, and we'll see you all again very soon. Mahalo and aloha.
Aloha.